welcome to Saint-Gobain and the Economic Times Smart Green Summit and Award 2015. This episode will shift focus onto modern technology and innovative construction that will help in conserving our natural resources and on an award ceremony that will honor individuals and organizations behind this cause. Take a look.
The delegates at the summit were welcomed by Venkat Subramanian, the Managing Director at Saint-Gobain India Gyprock Business. He emphasized the urgency to incorporate innovation in design for sustainable global habitats, especially in the light of a rapidly growing world population.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Saint-Gobain Group, I am very pleased to welcome all of you to this special event. As the leader in providing materials and solutions for the habitat where we live, work, and entertain, we do understand the impact buildings have on the environment. Buildings account for 40% of the energy consumed and 38% of the greenhouse gas emissions in industrialized countries. Everyone's future, therefore, depends on our achieving sustainable habitat solutions. 7 billion humans on the face of the earth in 2014 and going to 9 billion by 2050. It will no longer be possible to house everyone as in the past. In India, urbanization is expected to grow from a level of about 30% to over 50% in the next couple of decades. The planet's resources are limited, and so we need to reinvent habitat. Sustainable habitat is one of the responses that we have to this challenge. As we celebrate the 350th anniversary of Saint-Gobain in 2015, we have decided to take advantage of this exceptional opportunity to promote our values and the bonds that link us to our stakeholders. An important initiative as part of the 350th anniversary of our company was the Housing Innovation Challenge, linking two important and contemporary topics from the Indian context: social mass housing and smart cities. We had very enthusiastic participation from architects, designers, consultants, and people from the society. Today, we would be recognizing the winners of the Housing Innovation Challenge as well. I once again welcome all of you to the Smart Green Summit, a day packed with insights from several pioneers in the field of architecture, construction, and sustainability. Thank you.
The delegates at the Smart Green Summit were enlightened by an insightful presentation by James Edwards from Fosters and Partners, who spoke on innovative usage of daylighting in buildings to enhance the workspace productivity.
Well, I think it's really about how we always need to be aware of our surroundings, less sealed in controlled environments, and we need to, I think the difference now is that we've always understood that when we open a window and feel a breeze, for example, we all know we like that. But up until now, we've never been able to understand scientifically why we like that. Why does it affect our brains? So some of the research I used has shown for the first time that brain activity really bursts into action when you're feeling thermal movement, or you're feeling air movement, or you're feeling daylight, light and shade, all those aspects of natural world that we tend to forget if you're in a sealed environment. Lots of our buildings that we've done with Foster and Partners have always used these as the base premise for the start of the project. We always try to answer the brief, but at the same time keep daylighting, natural ventilation part of the story. And that contributes to the energy consumption of the building and the future.
Vidur Bhardwaj from the 3C company was next to share his views on the importance of technology in architecture and design. In his presentation, he stressed on modern technology being the driving force of the future.
I think today, we as architects and developers need to understand, adopt and adapt, and accept very willingly that technology is going to be the driving force of the future. We looked at our ancestors for the kind of historical buildings we made, and we look at today the way we design buildings, which is a combination of active and passive features. Passive features is sun shading devices, thickness of walls, glass, and so on and so forth. Active is air conditioning, lighting, water harvesting, all those technology put together to make green and sustainable buildings. And we tend towards now to go towards buildings which are shunya, which are zero, which don't take anything from the electricity grid, are self-sufficient. But when I look at the future, I see a different future. I see a future which is based on technology. It's based on information, it's based on sharing technology. So we look at the nanotechnology, which is there in every vertical. But when I look at nanotechnology in the building industry, where I belong to, I find that it's growing by mounts and leaps, even to the extent this building in Taiwan, which is the entire facade is made of glass bottles. The glass bottles and steel, and it's portable, you can mix, you can remove it and take it. But when we talk about biotechnology, it helps us start making the design of buildings in such a way that they start reacting as humans. To give you an example, if I would have a piece of dust here, my hand would go and clean it. If the same dust comes on my building, the building would actually clean itself. They are self-cleaning buildings which we are putting up now. Okay, so the building will clean itself, the glass will clean itself. It's very expensive, but going forward become cheaper like all technology does. So that is one level of nanotechnology which we start to embrace and implement. But really what I would like to see happen, which is now more than the experimental stage, is actually the biomimicry, which we get inspired by animals, by plants, which are all around us, to see how we can adapt them, and including humans, to really make buildings. So I want to actually have a building which is human in the way it thinks, it reacts and implements. For example, if I cut my hand would start healing by itself. We are coming to buildings which will start doing that by itself. They are intelligent, they're elasticable, they're flexible, they have the flexibility in their design and material and their core to start doing that. That's biomimicry. If you look at a plant, you touch it and it goes back, right? Now you have buildings now which are the facades. So if it is nice and bright, the windows will start becoming less, and if it's dark, it will start opening by itself. If it starts raining and you have an open courtyard in the building where normally natural light and natural ventilation comes in, it starts closing up. So if you go undersea, you see those corals, you touch them and they go like that. Now that's biomimicry. That's the next level, the next generation of buildings which have started to come up. It's not only just at drawing stage, they start to be built. They're expensive, but then all technology is expensive initially and starts becoming cheaper and cheaper.
In another breakthrough presentation at the summit, renowned German architect and artist Jochen Hermann Mayer made the case for innovative sustainable construction using the Metropole parasol in Sevilla, designed by him as an example.
Metropole Parasol, which is the project that I presented today at Saint-Gobain and Economic Times panel symposium on sustainable construction, is a project that reactivates the very center of Sevilla downtown, which was an empty lot for about 30 years. It is now bringing back the food market which was there before. It has an archaeology excavation that has a window into the history of Sevilla. And also with the big mushrooms, you have a view to the horizon, and you show with the construction the innovation capacity of the city of Seville in collaboration with us as architects, engineers, Arab, and the company who's constructed it, Sacyr and Finforest Merck. I presented timber as an innovation in construction, which is a lamination with a polyurethane coating that can create completely different forms and dimensions, covering the plaza, bringing shadow and creating an atmosphere and a climate that is changing the way we can actually occupy public areas and urban space in warmer outdoor areas. The exchange that I had today at the summit and conference is about sharing knowledge, also transferring knowledge from projects that I saw in other presentations, bringing them back into our work as much as I would share my knowledge and our discoveries with architects and colleagues and developers here in India. To work in India is a fantastic opportunity, and we are already starting to collaborate with collaborative architects in Mumbai to talk to developers and also get involved with projects in this fascinating country where the architectural heritage is so impressive, and we would like to contribute for the future with a similar contribution that we can see from the past.
In the race for creating sustainable habitat through design and architecture, while the world has witnessed a lot of innovation, noise pollution is one important factor that requires equal consideration. Dr. Nigel Osland, strategist at Workplace Unlimited, explained why.
I want to start with this slide. This was a survey, and what they found is that noise is the number 2 biggest issue, the biggest cause of dissatisfaction and loss of productivity in the office. And it's not just about dissatisfaction. Noise causes stress, absenteeism, affects everything we do, affects our well-being. And also what I found was really interesting is that in that study of 100,000 people, only half of the people in those offices thought the office allowed them to be productive. And to be frank, that's just not good enough. So I want to focus on noise. What is noise? The simplest definition of noise is it's unwanted sound. And actually, what all the studies have shown, the research has shown, is that sound level only accounts for 25%. What I'm interested in is the other 75%, and that's about how sound is affected by our physiological and psychological responses, and it's called psychoacoustics. So we did some clever statistics, we did some factor analysis, and based on that, we started to understand what are the main variables that affect our perception of noise. And you can see some of the variables here. So a big one that came into a lot of the equations was the ability to screen noise. So some of us have a natural ability to ignore the surrounding noise. Other people, it's a learned ability, and other people just don't get it, just never learn it. So that is a key thing. Another factor was the design, that acoustic design. So what we did is we asked people to mark the different acoustic design features in their office, and the more acoustic design features there were, the less affected they were by noise. Good thing for the designers. Homeworking, I've already mentioned homeworking. So the people who can occasionally work from home to do tasks without distraction, they found that that could reduce their how they were affected by noise. And so on. You can see the personality factors are starting to creep in. So we're starting to see that extroversion, neuroticism, and so on affect how we react to noise. So we came up with an acronym to help you design, or help us all better design acoustic environments. We call it DARE. So displace, you can read the reports on this, but displace basically means displace noisy activities. So if your workforce needs to concentrate, needs to get work done without distraction, create spaces where the people who need to be noisy and let off steam and do brainstorming and high-level interaction, give them spaces where they can go. So we need to give them the choice to avoid noise. So what we mean by that is that thing about, well, if they choose to go and work from home occasionally, that's fine. Wouldn't want them doing it every day, but give them spaces, quiet pods, telephone booths, little nooks and crannies where people can go and hide so they can focus and concentrate without distraction. We need to reduce the noise levels themselves. So wherever we have a source of noise, we need to look at how we can reduce that. We need to use acoustic treatments. We need to use ceiling tiles, wall panels to reduce or to absorb noise and to reduce the level, the transmission of sound, particularly talking across the space. So what can we do to reduce noise? And also we need to educate people. I'll say more about this in a minute. But the whole point of education is we all know how and how not to behave. And some of us are better at behaving in the open plan than others. You know, we all know that guy who stands in the corner on his mobile phone shouting at it when you're trying to get your work done. So we try and work with people, with companies, to educate our team on how to behave, or at least be cognizant of how they're behaving in the open plan environment. So this is a plan of a hypothetical building, and there's a few things we can do here. The first one is, let's make sure our desks are sufficiently sized and spaced. If we create social spaces, informal meeting areas, breakout spaces, which I thoroughly support, by the way, it's important that we get to know our colleagues, get to trust them so we can work with them. But if we do that, partition it off in some way. It doesn't have to be in a room, it doesn't have to have glass walls, but use some form of partitioning to give those people some acoustic and visual privacy. It's difficult to see what these things are on plan, but they're kind of round pods where people can go to work, to do focus work, or to do teleconferences and so on, again, without distracting our colleagues. We can create little zones for people who have particular personality types, where they don't want to be exposed to the general hub and bub and buzziness of the office space. And if you're going to put printers in the open plan environment, do use some form of partitioning. So we've done the research. We started with a literature review, then we did the survey. Right now we're developing the tool. And the tool that we're developing has got several elements to it. The first is we do our physical measurements. We measure sound levels and we treat those. Then we look at the different work activities people are doing, because if we understand that, we understand the types of spaces they need. Then we look at their personality profiles. Like Google is a classic. Google actually is two different populations. When we see pictures of Google, we always see the slides and the fun bits, don't we? And that's because, you know, they have quite a lot of extroverted sales force, so they know they can design a space for that kind of people. But actually, they also have a lot of developers, a lot of the geeks in the background, and they kind of work in quiet, dark rooms. So they recognize we're different types of animal, and they design the spaces to make those animals thrive. So different personality profiles, that allows us to do some zoning. And then we also need to respect individual factors. We know from our research that age, for example, and screening ability affect the way we respond to noise. So we do lots of surveys, and then what that allows us to plan the space, zone the space. It allows us to make sure that when we introduce different work settings, they're acoustically sound, and so on. That's where we've got to so far. I say it's the start of a journey. I hope it means something to you people. I mean, it's a big issue, I think, across the world. Noise is the issue we're all ignoring. And as I said, it's probably having the biggest impact on our people in the office space. Thank you.
The Minister of State for Urban Development, Babul Supriyo, was one of the galaxy of ministers to grace the summit. He exhorted the central, state and local governance bodies to collaborate closely and work for the development of the country.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My heartiest congratulations to Economic Times for having organized this wonderful meet. Being in politics for only about a year and a half, and obviously the junior-most minister in the ministry, anywhere I go, I have a great department. My department's surname is development. The middle name is development, rather. I have urban development and housing. So the middle name is development. And that is exactly what we are trying to do under the invigorating leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji. And as I'm trying to learn the basics of the business, if politics or governance is a business, I would love it to be run like a business where you look into governance as something which would not be Desh Seva, but also something where you deliver with a corporate mind. And I think that is exactly where and that's why, rather, it is great as a politician or as someone from the government to be associated with a meet which is sponsored by a glass company, which means that all of us inside the room are not only transparent in our own dealings, but also looking at each other at transparent mind. As a politician, with the kind of burden of transparency that we carry on our shoulders, thank you so much, Saint-Gobain, for giving it a very transparent nature. I genuinely feel that Indians as such, the population, we have to really understand that we in the central government, we are in a federal structure where whatever we plan, whatever policy that we make here, maximum of that, they are centrally sponsored scheme with the onus of with the onus of actually executing that on ground zero, lying on the state governments and the urban local bodies. In young ages, we have all traveled in train. We still do travel in train at times. And you see that when you travel in the sleeper classes, there are three tiers in it. If you look at the upper tier as the central government, the middle tier is the state government, and the lower tier is the urban local body. Now, a lot of the time in the trains, we see that people come in, they take the tiffin boxes, they have their rajai, and they just climb to the upper berth and just relax that they don't want to be disturbed. They behave like the central government. The middle berth is normally the state government, but the lower berth, if you see, that is the lowest berth. But that is what the urban local body signifies in our country. When it comes to reaching a particular destination, that in making our cities smarter, in making our cities sustainable, I think we all need to think as in those three tiers where the people from the upper tiers actually having to come down, climb down and sit on the lower berth and relying that the lower berth is going to be able to take the burdens of the dreams and the aspirations, policies of all that happened in air. Hawa mein bahut sari cheezein hoti hai that happened in air, but then it has to happen at the lowest berth, which is the berth of the urban local body. आप चाहें तो यहाँ पे clap कर सकते हैं, because that is the summing up of the entire thing. I wish you all the very best, and I hope that we have a great interaction session even in the evening.
The Housing Innovation Challenge, or HIC Award, a Saint-Gobain initiative, was launched to invite innovators and thinkers across all verticals to pinpoint problem areas arising in housing and to subsequently design sustainable solutions for the same. There were two broad categories for the awards: sustainable housing and housing in smart cities. These submissions were evaluated by an eminent jury comprising Dr. Anand Tanikela, Brinda Somaya, Professor Jaisim and Rahul Kadri.
You see, our requirement for India is that we have yet to build, which in some ways is a very fortunate situation, because we can learn from all the mistakes that developed countries and recently developed countries have made. India has to go to 3 times larger. That means 3 more Indias will be developed in the next 30 years. We don't have the resources, neither the material, nor energy, nor water. So it's very essential for us. It's not a choice. It's mandatory for us that we adopt sustainability. That means recycle, conserve and preserve. So for India, it's mandatory. It's really a call of the hour that when we build 3 more Indias, we use sustainability as the base.
I'm very happy to note that finally the builder sector, the government and the public have also become aware. Maybe we were addressing a very small and minority sector till now. The fact that it has become a public issue is a very commendable point. But what will it lead to is what I'm looking at. Will it lead to a lot of confusion in the beginning, or a conviction that can bring clarity? But how to bring about that? Whose responsibility? Where are the leaderships that can take into this? I can then look at it and say the new initiative by the central government on what people call as smart cities. We in Bangalore renamed it as livable cities, because people look at smart as something else. Then we look at technology, then we look at art. Then we go back almost 2,000, 3,000 years. Then I found those cities and neighborhoods were very livable. Why are they not now? Is it because of too much cross things that are happening? It is a very fascinating thing to look at it. But then we are today, in not just in India, but all over the world, in an extremely rush matter. Today is not tomorrow. Tomorrow is not yesterday. We have reached such a space that it's going to be very, very difficult to say this is what's going to happen.
People are asking for solutions like you saw in session after session. There are no immediate solutions. There are possibilities. There are some ways, but it is very essential to every time be able to take a step back and look again and go forward. That consciousness must be there. You just don't rush into a direction. If you rush, it's going to be very difficult to sort it out.
And that's all for this week. Thank you for watching this episode of the Smart Green Summit and Awards 2015 presented by Saint-Gobain and the Economic Times. Keep watching ET Now.